a conversation with Betty A. Evans about her book, The World's Greatest Possum Trainer. That I think perhaps is the best title I've heard for a book. And wait till you see why. Betty, first of all, I am so glad we're having this conversation. And for everybody that's out there that's watching us, listening to us, hold that book up.
Okay.
Look at that book cover. I love the book cover. So explain the cover and the gorgeous dog on the front.
Okay. The world's greatest possum trainer came from the world's greatest possum trainer, Little Bit, who was a rescue dog. I saw the people throw her out in the middle of the road, and I picked her up, and she became one of the best goat herders and possum trainers that we've ever had. In fact, she convinced the possums that they didn't need to be on the farm anymore.
You gotta love that. So tell us more about Little Bit. You see that shocking thing that happens, and what'd you do? Just pull over and scoop Little
I,
Bit up?
I stopped the truck in the middle of the road and picked her up and took her home. And I was almost home anyway. Excuse me. And our driveway is about a mile long into the woods. And I told her, I said, don't be afraid. I'm not taking you off down here to throw you away. I said, but you're going to have to be a really good pup to convince Papa to keep you. And that's my husband. We call him Papa. And so she fell into the routine of everything on the farm. Wayne built her a house inside the goat barn and a big run so she could get out and run until she got used to being on the place because we didn't want her to run off. And she bonded with the goats and became their protector, and just was the sweetest, petness puppy you'd ever want to know. And my husband always said she looked like a possum as a puppy. She was an ugly puppy, but she grew into this beautiful shepherd looking dog and was just a natural herder. She wanted to herd the chickens. She wanted to herd the other dogs. Just, she was just a herder. And
Wow.
we were building our home at the time, and we would not be there. We would leave late in the afternoon before dark, and she would go to her house in the barn, and we would be back the next morning working on our home. And she became also our construction engineer. She had to have her paw and face into everything that we nailed, the backhoe digging and everything else. So when we moved in to the house, she was in the house a lot because she could look out the back French doors and see her goats and know that they were okay. And we would let her out at night, and there's a huge night watcher light out in our front yard, and the bugs fly around it, and some of them fall to the ground. And she went out one night, and there was this big male possum out there. And she went out, and they exchanged words that I'm glad I couldn't understand. And of course, the possum fell dead. If people don't know too much about possums, if you bug them and they can't get away, they'll just fall over and act like they're dead. So she brought the possum up to the carport, and she did this back and forth for probably a couple of weeks. And it got to the point where all we had to do was close the door. The possum heard it and fell over dead, even before Little Bit got out of the house. And I would tell this story to my second grade students, and the principal came in and she wanted me to share it with the other kindergarten, first grade, and other second grade teachers in their rooms, or bring the kids to my room. Because at the time I had like a PowerPoint presentation with Little Bit and all the other critters pictures on it. And they said, Betty, you need to tell this story. You need to write this story. And I retired from teaching in 2010, and the book was published in 2011. And it has since, this is the second printing of it. My husband did the illustrations for it in just pencil. And when I had it published again, let me see, they took my husband's drawings and put them into more of a cartoon and color format, which I just dearly loved. The other characters in the book are real animals. Fred and Mike are two raccoons that visit the farm, or at that time visited the farm all the time, to eat the chicken feed because they could get their little paws into where the chicken feeder was. And Sassy the goat was our head goat. She was a big Toggenburg, best milk in the world. So we milked our goats and had goats milk all the time. And so I put the story of all these animals, Beagle Dog, the fat beagle and the queen of the house. I put all of these animals into this book. That's why it's called a mostly true book in the introduction of it.
Sure.
But because the animals talk, Little Bit is actually telling her story in the book. And so the animals don't use good English. They don't have good mechanics. They have some slang. And I did that on purpose because at the time I was writing lesson plans so that teachers K through 4 could use the book to teach English, grammar and mechanics, economics, and science through children's literature. When I had the book reprinted, though, we took out the things that would go with the lesson plans. So I've just been very proud of the book. It's doing pretty good, and it's great for gifts for the kids. And I think every child in Monticello, where I live, has a book. And I still have people ask me for their new grandchildren and their new children. They need a copy of The World's Greatest Possum Trainer.
Wow. And you can feel free to put the book down, but because everyone's certainly seen it. Wonderful illustrations. You're absolutely right. But Little Bit, who knew when you rescued Little Bit how much joy Little Bit would bring to you and your husband and the responsibilities on the farm?
Absolutely. But we were used to having rescue dogs because we actually fostered mother dogs and their puppies so that they wouldn't go to the city pound at the time, because the way the city pound was constructed, the puppies could crawl under the fence and get into the sewer line. And so we didn't adopt, we fostered puppies and the mother dogs, and we ended up with a lot of them because I couldn't find good homes for them.
Right. Wow. What a good soul you are. And what,
Well,
I mean, just the joy you can tell, you can see it on your face, how much it meant to you.
you.
But for these kids and how this story has spread, you have to be pretty proud of that. Aren't you so glad that you put this into a book?
Oh, absolutely. It's just, even though all of the animals that are in the book now have passed on across the Rainbow Bridge, I still have more stories to tell about them and the new pups that I have now and the new animals that we have. We feed deer on the farm, and they think they're dogs, I think, because they come right up to the back porch and look into the French doors to see are y'all in there? Is it time to eat? You know, so, and we still have raccoons. We no longer have the goats because my husband and I, either one, are able to keep the fence up all the time for the goats. It's quite a job and an undertaking taking care of a goat herd of about 20 goats, because they're high maintenance, especially our goats because they were spoiled.
I like that they were spoiled. When children or when anybody actually can get your book, because it's a lovely story, and I think there's so many different themes in your book that you don't even really, they're just underlying themes, like you rescuing little bit, what that means, the whole thing, animals and our relationships to animals. What do you hope people or children especially take away from being read the book or read the book?
One of the things that I go back to all the time is the economics that I can teach from the book. And in K through 2 and somewhat into grade 3, the economic concepts are the very beginning concepts of economics are taught to these kids to teach them how to make good decisions, because by the time you get to high school, all you're learning there is how to keep a spreadsheet, how to keep a budget and all. But unless you learn way back here how to make good decisions about the things you do, even the decisions that you make about how you treat animals, is part of economics. My children in my second grade classes could pick up any book in our school library and go through it and pick out the basic economic concepts.
Wow.
So that's one thing. Then the science that I would teach, hope the children learn from it, is just the science about the animals, about the tracks. In my class, I taught about the animal tracks. I would have people from the Game and Fish Commission come in and bring plaster cast of tracks of different animals. I would even bring in baby goats. I couldn't bring in the big goats, but I could bring in baby goats and talk to them about how important it was to make sure that they had the minerals that they needed, the protein, and back and forth, even with my chickens and everything. So we could teach science from it. And then, of course, I taught a lot of English, or other teachers taught a lot of English from it with the lesson plans that I developed for the grammar and mechanics. I didn't take a lot of the English of the animals out of the book. They still talk in their voice, so that kids are really good about understanding that animals may not, especially possums and raccoons, may not talk the way we do. So I left those voices in the book so that when a kindergarten teacher's reading the book to a child, she can use those voices, use the voice of that sneaky old possum, and just, oh, don't you come under the house, I'll bite you. And then the coons, we're gonna run down here, you want to go with us a little bit? And the raccoons were Fred and Mike. They were named after guys that worked with my husband, and they were just thrilled to death to have their names attached to 2 raccoons.
Boy, no kidding. I mean, what a wonderful place to end this story. And show us the book again, The World's Greatest Possum Trainer. And there's a little bit right there on the cover of Betty A. Evans. You can pick this book up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever great books are sold. Thank you so much for sharing Little Bit and all the animals with the world. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. This has just been a pleasure and a joy. I love talking about my books and I love talking about my animals.